I'm going to go ahead and also give a little introduction on myself because I think everyone down there, I've grouped with most of you before. I believe I've grouped with everyone down there, so they know who I am. But there are some people that I haven't played with personally in here right now. So, hi, I'm Faye. I'm your GM.
Hi, Faye.
Surprise. A background on my raiding experience is that I never knew that there was such a thing as endgame content until Legion. I thought that leveling and questing was the game. Imagine my shock and awe when I found out that there was an entire game after the game. So I was originally dragged through Nighthold. That was my first raid in Legion. And yes, Tate, you will get muted so fast. Um, so I was dragged through Nighthold as a carry in Legion. I did not know what terms were. I did not know what people were saying. They would just say, stand in a corner, try to do damage, try not to die. It was not a helpful way to learn raiding. It was very much trial by fire. And this was a mythic progression guild, so I ended up going from normal to heroic to mythic with them, and we ended up doing all the way up into mythic Tomb of Sargeras with that guild. Then, due to differences in how humans should be valued, I found a different guild and did all of my Antorus the Burning Throne progression with them. I did get my attack or ahead of the curve on uh, Antorus, and by that point, I had begun to lead raids. I started as a team captain, which is a concept that we will go over in the discussion. And eventually, when I broke off from that guild because it was just very small and dissolving, and starting this guild, I was leading raids where it was essentially myself, Ulta, two other guild members, and 13 pugs. um, I would get them all into Discord and corral them like the cats that they were. So that is just a background of where I'm coming from on my rating experience. I know that there are people on here who reference things all the way back to Vanilla and AQ20, AQ40, Molten Core, talking about Siege of Orgrimmar and things as recent as that. I do not have a perspective for those, but I do have a perspective of the most recent expansion, and that is where we'll be going from there for BFA. So once again, if you haven't already, please fill out the poll. Just click the number that correlates to the amount of raid experience that you have in Discord. And yay, everyone is in here. That's awesome. Okay, so for those of you who just joined us, definitely do the poll in the raid channel. I was just explaining to them what my raid experience is. And also, while you're in the raid channel, go ahead and click on the link to go to the wonderful website that my husband has made. He has tension in the guild, and I'm very appreciative of him for doing this. So today we're gonna go sort of right down the middle between the most basic concepts and a refresher. At any point, if you have a question, I am going to trust you guys to pipe up and ask something respectfully. If it's something that I will cover later, I will tell you so and just trust and believe that we're going to get to it. So, some of the things may seem like, duh, why are you going over this, Faye? But as someone who was dragged through heroic rating before I even knew what half of this shit was, I can tell you that there's at least one person in this channel that while you guys are going, they're going, oh, that's what that means. I was too afraid to ask. So, um, Is anyone having problems getting the website open? I will take your silence as affirmation that you're in the website, but let me know if anyone has any problems. 3, 2, 1. Okay, awesome. So, at the top here is just a breakdown of some common compositions. If you're hearing me talk about flexibility in roles, that we need people who can bounce back and forth between healer and DPS specifically are the most important flexibility in the moment. There may be times in a single raid night where you bounce back and forth between the two of those. Also having tank DPS or tank healing flexibility is important from week to week because we might need you for one week different the next. But this all comes down to our composition. Um, Compositions are laid out to be the most efficient because, as it says here, the number of people that we have in the group, the boss's health will go up. So we can't just storm in with 30 DPS and 2 tanks and overwhelm them. We've got to break it down, make the most use of our people power. So this is what our compositions typically are. I tend to enjoy between a 15 to 25. 20 is ideal for me, but we are going to adapt week to week with what we have. A couple of things to go over. The raid leader is the person who will be doing the most talking. I'm so sorry for your ears. That's gonna be me for the time being. This is something that will possibly change in the future. I'm definitely keeping an eye on people who show great leadership skills, who want to help take over when the time comes that I just can't screech at you guys anymore. My voice is gone. After the raid leader, the second most important people in the raid that are communicating are going to be your tanks. They're going to communicate with each other, and they may also communicate with everyone else. They're at the front of the room taking all the punches, so we love them and want them to know how important they are. Another thing that we touched on briefly while we were chit-chatting is team captains. Especially when you're in a large raid, it's difficult for raid leader to have their eyes on everyone. So there might be times where I say, you're a healer. I need you to keep an eye on how healing is going. If we have a weak spot somewhere, if we need to assign a cooldown rotation, something, that person will then be the healer team captain for that fight. And it's just a really good way to split up the visibility of all the chaos. So that's just a breakdown of composition. I'm going to just go ahead and scroll down to preparation. And these are things that you need to get ready before this coming Saturday. I wanted to do this early on in the week so that way you all have plenty of time to take care of these things. We're a great guild already. We have feasts from Keanu, cauldrons from Tate. We've got these large group consumables that mean that you don't always have to have your own individual ones. However, you should always be prepared with individual consumables just in case there's not a group consumable available. So Jesse put together a great little primer here. Always go, by the stat that you are trying to beef up. You'll want to make sure that you have food in case there's not a feast, that you have flasks in case there's not a cauldron. The other 3 items, potions, runes, and seals, you will always have your own. There is no group consumable for those. So I'll go over potions down below, but and I'll go over seals below as well. But runes are something that are a consumable. If you die, the buff goes away, but they give you additional buffing. They give you stat buffs. So you want to have runes and just maximize your numbers as much as you can. You also want to make sure, especially as we're doing progression and we're getting new gear every week, or every night even, if you're, running mythics, make sure you keep up on your gems and your enchants. If you need those things, they're typically in the guild bank. Eeyore and Tension can do gems, and also Eeyore do enchants. So there shouldn't really be a need for you to have to spend your own money in the auction house. We're going to try to provide for our guild as much as we can. So keep up on those things, because once again, you want to come into these raids just geared to the teeth as much as you can. If you've got an empty socket, you're not maximized for success. And that's something that takes 2 seconds to make an instant improvement. And then repairs, say it was raid time and that mythic group that just got out of Shrine of the Storm, oh shit, we just finished, we need to go ahead and get into raid. Make sure you're repaired from getting your ass kicked the last time. So that's something that you'll do weekly. Make sure you have all of these things ready to go. Um, I'm sorry, my dogs are assholes. Um, then, down in learning the fights, I will go over the fights as we're doing them. We'll speak more on that later. But this is a good way before we ever even have raid night. Between now and Saturday, I think everyone should go in and watch the Fat Boss or the Hazelnutty guides for these fights. And before every fight, until you're really used to it, until we have this on farm where we're doing it in our sleep, open the dungeon journal, get a quick refresher. Wowhead also has text guides that I discovered personally from a guildie this past week. So, um, you know, it never hurts to quickly glance over some of those things. And then the next thing to prepare before Saturday is going to be your add-ons. The first one is Deadly Boss Mobs. For those of you who have never used this, it is going to yell at you if you're standing somewhere bad. It's going to show you a countdown. It's going to help us organize various groups and things like that. Also, like, it's just a handy add-on to have. And I know that there are people here who cannot stand some of the alerts. I have sounds turned off. I can't handle them. They overwhelm me. If you need help with settings or anything like that, let us know. There are people here who can help you adjust things to your preferences. In the Deadly Boss Mods, by the way, section, you'll notice that there are some linked words. There is a glossary, by the way. I didn't want to go over all of the you may or may not know raid terms, but I did put some that may be confusing to people into a glossary. So that's available. And if there's anything that I say that isn't in the glossary and you're like, okay, Faye, what is that? Let me know. I'm happy to elaborate. The next add-on that you should probably get, it's not required, is details. This is going to help keep track of how everyone is doing in the fight. It keeps track of damage per second, healing done, threat generated, interrupts. Basically, it's our accountability. It's how we gauge where things are at as far as our numbers are concerned. Um, some guilds use it as a very vicious sort of separation, like, oh, you were under these numbers, so you're out of here. No, this is just more like, hey, details is showing me you're using these spells, you're below the tank on DPS, like, we need to adjust something. So it is a helpful tool. And then the last thing that I would recommend for rating is Pawn. Pawn can help you see if a piece of gear is an upgrade or not. It is not an absolutely perfect method, especially if you are considering gear for for another spec than what you're in. But it does give a handy, little green arrow pointing up if something is an upgrade for you, and it's just an easy way to glance at that sometimes. We'll get to the looting section later on, but it's really nice to be able to glance at something and say, wow, that's a pretty significant upgrade for me because of the stat weights that I put into Pawn. Pawn comes preloaded with stat weights. I personally would recommend going to somewhere like Icy Veins or Noxic and getting the most current up to date stat weights for your class. And if you need assistance with that, myself or Tension or anyone else who uses Pawn can help you with that. So, that is preparation. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns before we move on? I will take silence as a no. All
I
right.
like that it scrolls, by the way.
That was,
Your website scrolls. You don't have to click to do pages.
yes, Jesse did a very good job. So, coming down to etiquette. So, this is a section that can help us be more successful in our raid than hitting the right buttons and punching the boss real good in the face. Um, so just some general rules of thumb here. We want to we want to make the most use of our time. Everyone here has real lives with families, friends, sleep schedules, work. So make sure that if you are going to somehow affect other people's time, you communicate or you avoid doing so if you can. For example, go ahead and be logged in. Don't be trickling in, 5 minutes after raid start time. Go ahead and get in 5, 10 minutes before. It just helps us be ready. We can get summons started. When enough people show up, we can start clearing trash. Um, and you do not need a mic. As long as you can listen, that's all we want. Um, Keeping chatter to a minimum, especially when we're learning new content. Once we have stuff on farm, it's fine. We can bullshit all we want. But keeping chatter to a minimum, you guys are like a pack of wild animals right now. So clearly we're going to have lots of problems with that. And then, for those of you who have never heard it before, if you hear someone say clear channel, that is your cue to, no hesitation, shut up. Stop talking. I don't care what your sentence was saying. Somebody needs to communicate incredibly urgently. So, down in timeliness, I already talked about getting in, 5 minutes beforehand. Also, RSVP please on the guild calendar. I've found earlier this week that a lot of people don't realize that there is a calendar in game, and I actually go in and put all of our raids, our mythic nights, our events like we're having tonight on the guild calendar. If you RSVP to that and do so accurately, keep it updated. Hey, found out my wife wants to go out Saturday night, so I can't. I'm going to cancel my RSVP. That helps us know what our composition is going to look like, and that means I can waste my time before raid trying to find healers or pugging people if we absolutely need to. I don't want to waste that time during our specified raid. I do mention on here we value game and life balance, so I do not expect 100% attendance. I don't expect 90% attendance. I just expect that you'll communicate when you will and won't be there to the best of your ability. So, on that note, I'm not the type of guild leader that is going to put people on the bench or things like that. But there will come a time when we progress from normal raid to heroic, and we will always do our best to carry people who maybe have missed a couple weeks or something. But if you're really behind and you haven't, you know, we just can't drag your corpse through, you may have to pug with another group. I will do my best to eventually get a normal farm night going so people can catch up. But with the size of our guild right now, it's not immediately going to happen. So if it happens to where you have to run with a pug group one week to catch up, please don't take it personally. It's just we can only carry so much. So I talked about communicating if you're running late or will be unexpectedly absent. Discord does have a phone app. I have popped in plenty of times to say, "Hey, work asked me to stay an hour late. I'm poor and need money, so I will be late tonight." Planning your AFKs. This is a huge time waster in raid. People all of a sudden have to pee. I need a cigarette. My dog needs let out. My laundry dinged. Okay, we're human. We have lives. But you've got to try to be cognizant. If one person says that they need to go to the bathroom or go grab a smoke, take a moment. Mentally check in with your bladder. Check in with your dog's bladder. I would rather take one or two short breaks throughout the night than have several teeny tiny ones that run the risk of lasting 5, 10 minutes. Um, Now, I'm not a totally evil person. I understand. Things happen, they come up. But just remember that you're not just affecting, my time while I'm grumbling at you. You're affecting the time of possibly like 29 other people. So just please be respectful of that. Um, the next thing is something that a lot of people don't think of, but if you've never raided before especially, don't run into the instance until we're ready. I'm human. I have a hard time remembering to set it to the correct difficulty. So make sure we're good to go. Raid leaders going in. Because otherwise we have to get everyone out. And sometimes people will go into the instance and while the load screen is on, that's when they go take their cigarette break or something. So just wait until we're all ready to go in. Also, because we might need people outside to summon at the portals. And if everyone runs in and it's just poor Ulta standing there waiting by himself, then no one's going to get summoned. And then the last way to be timely is to quickly reform after we wipe. We're going to die often. There may be times when not everyone is dead, but raid leaders can go ahead and see we're not going to achieve a win on this fight, so we're going to call for a wipe. If someone in your leadership calls for a wipe, do it. Don't be a hero. Just stand somewhere bad, die quickly, and then after everyone is dead, make sure that there are no instructions like a raid warning, don't release, the shaman's gonna get us, or something like that. But as soon as you've got the all clear, get back alive, get fed, get repaired, get ready to go over our strategy again, and give it another go. In between wipes can be a huge time suck, especially because this seems to be a time when people want to go AFK. I understand if we've been going at it, it's a progression boss, that might be the best time for us to take a break, especially if we're worn down. But our best rule of thumb is to hurry up, get back alive, get ready to go. So, any questions on etiquette, timeliness, Discord, anything like that?
Um, can I say because I'm on an alt tune, I don't know about like saying when I'll be there, I guess.
Yeah,
Because it won't be in the guild.
like I said, RSVP as accurately as you can. So if it's the the evening of raid and you're like, hey, I'm going to be able to raid tonight, go ahead and RSVP. I'm going to look at the RSVPs probably an hour to 90 minutes before raid. So you can RSVP pretty damn close to raid start time. Does that help?
It's just that because I'm not my tune that I'll use isn't in the guild. That's all.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, okay. So, where are they at then? Are they in
I'm on
another?
doll.
Okay. So, I would RSVP with your tune that's in the guild. Are they different raid roles? Like, are they healer versus range DPS?
I can heal in DPS on my doll tune.
Okay. Just go ahead and RSVP on your guild tune, and for the first couple raids, you'll probably have to remind me of what your actual raid character is. Um, I will remember eventually, but just RSVP on the one in the guild so I know that there's going to be a warm body, and then whisper me or something what your actual tune is.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right. So that's everything as far as the human aspect of prepping and showing up on time. So we're gonna get into an actual boss pull, and once again, I really appreciate, especially for everyone who has already raided before. I know that some of this feels like training wheels, but I guarantee you there's someone in here that needs this. So thank you for your understanding on that. So when we're actually in the instance, we are through the trash, we're standing, in front of the boss. Some things that you'll want to make sure of. If we have a warlock, make sure that you grab lock rocks. That's just another emergency heal. Make sure that you eat. There will likely be a feast put down, like I said. Um, Also, the cauldron. Um, I should put that in there. Jesse, will you make a note of that? That we need to put cauldron on before the pull. Um, so food, flasks, and then if we have any classes in there, priests, mages, things like that, if you have, a tank buff or something like that, please go ahead and pass those out. Um, Please minimize horseplay. And I can think of at least two people who are blushing right now because they know that they need to listen to this.
Alta.
Yup.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So, um, we have fun, we have a good time. It's not the end of the world if someone accidentally pulls the boss, but it can waste time, especially when we're progressing, and that's just something that I want to try to avoid. It kind of it kind of scales to where the more we have a boss on farm, the less of a shit I give. If we're on heroic content and we're farming normal, chances are I really don't care if you're accidentally taunting the boss and you pull it because we're going to be able to down it super quick anyway. But we are nowhere near that yet, considering the first raid hasn't even opened. So please exercise some discipline and try not to accidentally fat thumb a moonfire
Alta.
on his monk. Yeah, don't punch and kick things because you were trying to get your costume on.
I punch through space and time now.
Right. Okay. So once everyone is ready, I will go over, and I say I for raid leader here. There will be other raid leaders eventually. I'm going to go over some quick mechanics. I will remind you, please drop off all of your bad on the right-hand side. Don't go over to the left unless you're a tank. Take down the left cannon first. Anyone who raided with me in Legion knows what boss I'm doing right now. So I'll go over mechanics very quickly. And wow, if you refresh your webpage, Jesse already added on cauldrons. Um, so after we go over mechanics, a ready check will appear on your screen. It will ask, are you ready? Are you not ready? Please answer honestly. If you are fucking around with something and you're like, yeah, it'll be fine, I just need like 5 more seconds, don't say ready then. Take the moment that you need to finish what you're doing and then select ready. Or if the ready check expires, if then it's going to mark you automatically as not ready. We'll run a ready check until everyone is ready. At that point, usually the tank or the raid leader will start a pull timer. If you have DBM, it's going to count down from whatever number they start at, typically 10. At 0, the tanks are going to engage the boss, but at around 3 seconds, you're going to take a potion. So, a concept of pre-potting may be new to some people. I know I had no idea what the fuck it was. Basically, you are only allowed to take 1 potion per fight. So a way to get around that is to take 1 potion before the fight technically starts. Potions last approximately 1 minute, and if you take it about 3 seconds before the fight starts, you get 57 seconds of use out of it, and then you get to take another potion later on. So, that's before the fight. Tanks will pull. And I'm getting a notification. Why? So, okay. We're getting a recommendation in to talk about more than stat potions. 2 people have mentioned that now. We will update that later. There are various potions that do lots of different things. That is something that talk to your fellow raiders. You know, we can go over that on a roll by roll basis. We don't need to go over it, except just know that there are more than just potions that boost a stat. There might be potions like Lay Torrent that refill your mana or something like that. So those exist. All right. So during the fight, this lovely red banner of the 3 most critical things that will guarantee to give Faye a throbbing vein above her eye if you do not listen to them. I am one of the most easygoing people I know, but if you use a B-res or a hero without being told to, it is such a waste of strategy. There is a time and a place to use those things, so just don't. And then the other common just ideal is that mechanics are more important than DPS. If you're dead, you're not doing any DPS. So pay attention to the mechanics. I I am a caster class. I have long casts. Do you know how pissed I am when I'm right at the end of a cast and I have to move because of mechanics? Pretty pissed. But I move anyway. So anyway, um boss fights may be broken down into phases, so this is something to be aware of if you hear us talking about phase 1, phase 2, things like that. They may happen based on time, like Antoran High Council was every 180 seconds. It might be HP, which was Portal Keeper Hazabel, or it might be mechanics based, which I can't think of an example off the top of my head. So if you hear us talking about phases, that's what we're talking about. Heroism, bloodlust, drums. These are things that you don't have to worry about them unless you are the person I designate to worry about them. Shamans, mages, hunters with pets, raid leader that has drums. Most of you will never have to worry about this, so don't go buy drums on the auction house worried that you're going to need them, because you won't. A note on heroism, this is a great time to use things like big cooldowns. You know, if you can use them early on in the fight, so that way they're ready again by the time we hero. Also, stacking your second potion during this time. You know, anything that you can do to maximize this burst of energy can be really helpful. So that's just something to keep in mind. Battle reses. For those of you who don't know, we start out with one of them. I always save my last battle res for tanks, maybe a healer, in the most dire situations. We earn more B-reses the longer we fight without having to use one. So I've been in raids before where we've had like 4 B-reses stacked up, and it was amazing because we used 2 of them, you know, in a very short period of time. It's great to have that at your disposal. So, you know, don't waste B-reses or I will screech into the depths of hell. Wipes. I went over this earlier. Don't be a hero. And God, I don't want to make assumptions, but it's like always melee DPS that are still fighting the boss after even the tanks have died. Just don't.
Alter.
Just don't. Just die. If we call for a wipe, fucking die. There will be times when we know that it's just too late for us. So the best course of action is going to be restarting. So I won't harp on that anymore because I went over it earlier. Movement. Movement is very important. Once again, this is coming from someone who plays a caster class with long cast times, and it's very frustrating. But raids involve a lot of movement. Very rarely can you stand in one spot and cast or punch or kick. You know, you've got to be moving around. So be aware of where you are on the screen. People get hung up on staring at their damage meters or at the boss's health or at their health. Pay attention to where your character is. You may be setting someone on fire. You may be standing in fire. You may be around a corner and the healers can't cast any heals on you because you've broken line of sight on them. Range checks are something that are very, very useful. If you do slash range and then a number, that number is how many yards of a radius it's gonna tell you. I believe you can go down to 5 yards. So there are some mechanics that require you to be spread 2 yards from other people. Go ahead and do a slash range 5, because hell, if you're 5 yards away from people, you're definitely 2 yards away from them. Because that's how numbers work. So just, like I said, it's going to be frustrating sometimes. Your cooldown is going to have the perfect proc, and you're going to have like half a second left to use it, but you gotta roll away from the shit that's coming at you. Just remember that the mechanics and the movements are more important than the damage. We'll get the damage. With gear and good button pressing, we'll get the damage. But you can't fudge the movements. Communication. This is something that is going to be kind of a fight-by-fight situation. For anyone who did, like, Tomb of Sargeras, there are going to be times when, yeah, normally healers will see, oh, that person needs dispelled, so I'm just going to go ahead and dispel them. However, there are some fights where dispelling someone spreads it to everyone around them, so they shouldn't be dispelled until they are alone in a corner. Well, I can't expect my healers to be everywhere at once, so there may be fights where you need to say, dispel me, Faedren, you know, letting them know you're safe in a corner. And like I said, this will be a fight-by-fight situation. The same with interrupts. There may be fights where missing a single interrupt will cause us to wipe. So we'll communicate. I'll probably give an order, you know, get you... I'm so sorry, give me one moment. I may give an interrupt order, but just saying, Faedren's got the next interrupt. That lets us know, for example, my interrupt has a 60-second cooldown. If I think I've got it, but somebody else also gets it, we've just wasted 2 interrupts. So just communicating. This is why it's important to keep the channels clear. The next thing is also going to be sort of a fight-by-fight basis, and that's cleave awareness. But this was a really big thing in Legion, so they might punish us with it again. In Mythic Dungeons so far, it's been a very big thing to be aware of your cleave. I don't know about everyone else's classes, but fucking everything balanced druids do right now cleaves. They added cleaves to Solar Beam and to Moonfire, which previously weren't cleaves. Thanks, Blizzard. So be aware of those things. Be aware of where the tank has the enemies. Be aware of if they're next to something that is paralyzed or rooted, because you're going to fuck it up. So this is just all part of being aware, being cognizant of locations, just thinking one step ahead. If I hit this button, what's it going to do? So if your cleave spells are your most powerful, like I said, mechanics mean more. So use a less powerful spell if you need to. And then, finally, please learn your directions. I don't know. I have problems sometimes with my lefts and my rights, so I know that other people do as well. My best friend is a doctor, and she doesn't know her left from right. God help us all. Learn clockwise, counterclockwise, and your cardinal directions. I will try not to refer to things as left and right, especially considering people like melee and tanks and ranged are going to be facing different directions. I will attempt to use north, south, east, west in reference to the mini-map at the top right of your screen. So that was kind of a big chunk. Before we go into mechanics, does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns?
When we're talking and you're saying left and right, I've heard tank left and tank right. If I didn't hear that explained, I would love to have that explained very quickly.
Okay, so, Ulta, what is the thing you say you're a butt stabber?
Yeah, I
Okay.
play WoW like Dark Souls.
So,
Face puncher.
most of the time, everyone but the tanks is looking at the ass of the boss. So when we're looking at the back of the boss, we're essentially facing, our faces are facing the same way that the boss's face is. So their left arm is our left arm. The tanks, however, are in front of the boss, punching them in the face. So the tank's right arm is the boss's left arm. Just like if you're facing a person in real life. So using directions like left and right, tank left, tank right, that can get really confusing. Especially in circular rooms or triangle shaped, it can get really bad. So we fumbled with that a bit in Legion, and I'm going to make a really strong focus on using cardinal directions.
Because I would prefer that.
Yes. So, down to mechanics. I am not going to go through all of these, but there are some things that you might hear me screech. And this is a kind of a primer of what some of those things mean. Some things like ads. Ad phases happen a lot. There's a breakdown in here. Scriv was a great help to me. We went over as many mechanics as we could think of to try to just give a breakdown of what you might expect in that. And I tried to put these in phrasing that you will hear me say, because you'll hear me say things like stack to soak. If you go ahead and click on that, you'll see that you need to converge on the player that needs something soaked off of them. There's things like I don't know. I'm trying to think of which ones to go off of. Dropping off your bad. Drop off your bad is such a pet peeve of mine when people don't do it, and I know that it's hard, especially for melee sometimes. But
Leave room for Buddha is another one you say a lot.
well,
or Ganesh.
I have Leave Room for Jesus on there, and I'm so sorry that has become a guild classic. But for those of you who didn't go to middle school in a small town Midwest city, when you're at a school dance and young adolescents are putting their hands on each other for the first time and swaying back and forth in the gymnasium, you need to leave room for Jesus between you two. So, there are times when Faye will yell at you to leave room for Jesus, and that just means don't stand close to people. Likely we're all on fire or all have, lightning or something. But I do apologize if that terminology does offend anyone. I will make the strongest effort to change it, but oh my god, I'm hoping it doesn't offend anyone because that is ingrained into my personality at this point. Kick your friend's ass is my favorite. There's a lot of kicking your friend's ass in Mythic Dungeons. Well, not just in Mythic Dungeons, but in dungeons in general. This kind of falls under ads. Suddenly our friends become ads, and if we don't kick their asses, you need to stop focusing on the boss, turn around, focus your friend, and kick their ass. So take a moment, go through some of these. Are there any of them that people see that they would like more of an explanation on? And you're always welcome to come to me after as well. There's going to be time for questions and answers after I speak. So, yeah, and if you have any suggestions for more mechanics, you can message them to me on Discord. Was somebody saying something? Okay. So, moving on, we're going to talk about our loot system. For anyone who has done raiding in the past, you may have screwed around with things such as RC Loot Council or Master Loot, where things like core groups and things like that are priority, and it's all bullshit to me. So we've got personal loot. Everyone loots the boss, gets their stuff, and it's all individual. I told you earlier we would talk about seals. That's going to be something that will be released tomorrow, I believe. Seals are something that you can get in Borealis that give you a chance to roll again and get another chance at loot on a boss. So you always want to make sure that you get your seals before raid night and use them wisely. Open the dungeon guide to see what loot a boss has. You don't just want to roll extra on every boss because they might not have useful stuff for you. Also, when you bonus roll, I did put it in there. Don't cry when you get AP. It happens to all of us. You're not special. It sucks. So, with that, with it being individual personal loot, if you get loot that you do not need, we are going on an honor system that you will post loot that you are willing to give up in the raid chat. Now, I'll go over it later, but if you have loot, it's not an upgrade for you, maybe someone else can use it. Link the item, say roll for this, give it 30 seconds to a minute. Give a little countdown. I do 5, hit enter, 4, hit enter, 3, hit enter, 2, hit enter, 1, hit enter. Give it a second to let people roll, then immediately trade it to the person that rolled the highest. If no one is interested in it for gear purposes, open it up to, hey, if anyone wants it for transmog, whisper me. Or disenchanting or anything like that. Or if you want to keep it for your transmog or disenchanting, that's fine if nobody needs it for gear. But it is an honor system, so don't ask people for gear. It wastes so much time. Trust that people will post their gear. As a reminder, if you bonus rolled it, you used your seal, you bonus rolled, fuck, I got loot I still can't use. It's not an upgrade. You'll just have to scrap it or something because you're not able to trade it. So try to keep things orderly. If somebody posts an item for roll and you've got one, wait a second for theirs to finish up so that way people aren't confused over what they're rolling on. And just try to be, I really trust you guys to self-govern. You don't need me to babysit you and say, no, you go first. You guys are capable of that. So, yeah, as soon as we wrap up looting, get trading done, hurry up, get on to the next boss. So, just sort of in conclusion, have a good attitude. Like I said, you guys are a really good group. I'm very proud of you. We're going to have criticisms sometimes. We're going to have things that we might disagree on as far as strategies or what went wrong. But as long as we maintain a good attitude, and remember that these are other people in this game with you that are spending money, that are taking time out of their real lives to be doing this cooperative thing together, then we're going to be much more set up for success. So with that, we are going to fail. We're going to be doing heroic progression. We're going to be carrying people who have never raided before. We're going to be a lot more lax on our attendance policies. So not being as strict on those things means that we're probably going to wipe a little bit more than, say, a, more hardcore progression guild would. But that's okay. My theory as raid leader, as someone who used to have a raid leader who would scream and rage quit after a couple of wipes, as long as we're doing better each time, as long as we're learning, as long as we're identifying problems and addressing them and trying new things, I'm a happy camper, and I hope everyone else is too. Also, don't forget that mechanics is more important than DPS. So, and of course, be cool. Come on. Nice. That really sounds dumb as hell when I say it out loud, but those are the guild rules. So, at this time, I am going to open it up for questions, comments, and concerns. Nothing?
I have a couple dumb questions.
Hey, no such thing. Go for it, babe.
Okay, so I had a fight with a raid group in 14 about this, so I have to clarify. Which ways do you consider clockwise and counterclockwise, from the 12 or from the 6? It's really, I have gotten to a fight with a raid group over this.
It's the same. Clockwise and counterclockwise are always the same. If you're starting from the 12, the hand is going down. If you're starting from the 6, the hand is moving up. But clockwise and counterclockwise are always the same. I will...
You're viewing it from above the room.
Yeah, you're viewing it as if... Oh my god, this is mathisfun.com. Can I not copy that? So I am posting a picture in Discord. Yeah, clockwise and counterclockwise are always there is no point of reference for them. You are viewing the room from above. So if that's something that is throwing people off, watch YouTube videos. I guess you could say I don't know. I always consider my fingers twirling to the left for counterclockwise, and then to the right for clockwise. But that's not true, like you said, once you pass the 12 and the 6. So you got to think of it from the center of the room. I'll find some more resources. I'll find a YouTube video that can explain it better, okay? Does anyone else have any questions?
I have a comment.
Yeah, what's up?
So, it's about directions and the minimap in particular. If you've got a mod that makes the minimap rotate, or if you've got that setting turned on in the game, please turn that off during a raid, because you never know which is north and which is south, which is east and west.
That's a good call. Yeah. The map that pops up when you press M should be static, so if you need to reference it for a bigger idea, it's going to show large, points of interest in the room. So if you need to open your big map up really quick and say, oh, that pillar right next to the boss is north, just get acquainted with that. All right, what else, y'all? Keep it coming. There's no such thing as a dumb question.
Can we talk about Akunda,
What is what?
our Lord and Savior?
No. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I would just like to remind everyone that staying alive in a raid will equal more DPS. Don't just suicide to get your numbers up.
Yes, and okay, I did want to talk about, just like I was saying, like, you don't have to worry about heroism unless I designate you to be someone to worry about that. There are exceptions to so many rules, especially with mechanics. With mechanics like don't stand in the bad. Sometimes you're going to see people like Ulta standing in the bad because they have a class-specific talent that benefits them to stand in the bad. So just don't worry if you're like, oh god, am I supposed to stand in the bad? It's going to be one of those things that you're going to be so obviously aware of it because it's built into your class. So don't fret over things like that. If you have concerns over whether you're playing your class right or anything like that, seriously check out Icy Veins or Noxic or the Discord channels. I know the Druids have the Dream Grove Discord channel, and those are really great resources. But yeah, sometimes Ulta will stand in the bad. Because monk. Anything else? And do any of my experienced raiders have anything they want to add that I might have missed? Nope. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and call it then. I really appreciate everyone showing up. This session will be posted so people can experience it as our guild grows with more new raiders. This website that Jesse made will be available. I do just really like I don't want to overwhelm voice chat or anything, but if you guys see tension online or anything, shoot him a thank you for doing such a good job. So thank you for that, sweetheart. And if you have anything that you think I need to add or put in the raid Discord or anything, I'm on Discord almost all the time. It's on my phone. I'm addicted to it. This guild is my baby, and I can't leave it unattended for 2 seconds. So I'm always open for suggestions.